I don't remember them at all.
Good evening and welcome to the 2026 AAAS annual meeting. My name is Jessica Hubbard, and normally I am the social media strategist for Science Magazine, but for the next few days I'll be hosting interviews here at the Sci Mic stage, which is supported by the George Washington University and is being presented in person and streaming online. Our first interview of the night is here with Scott Redman, the director of the Science and Evaluation Program at the Puget Sound Partnership. I'm going to start with a little bit of a maybe easy question. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
All right, I work for a state agency in the state of Washington. It's called the Puget Sound Partnership, as you mentioned, and we are small, but we coordinate across federal agencies, big state agencies, and especially local governments and tribes. We work on water quality issues and species recovery, especially salmon and killer whales. And I get to coordinate the science involvement in that, so I'm here.
Nice. And you'll be talking a little bit about that tomorrow and about your research, is that right?
Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation to come be interviewed here to try to bring people to our session tomorrow morning at 10 on estuaries in peril. And I think there's the slide up now. So Puget Sound is one of the case studies. We'll talk also about the central part of California, the Delta and San Francisco Bay Area, and Chesapeake Bay. And we all manage at the scale of an estuary, sometimes less than a state size, and in the Chesapeake case, more than the state size.
You mentioned the Chesapeake Bay, correct? So you do both West Coast and East Coast?
The panel will. My work is just in the Seattle area.
Right.
Yep.
So can you give a preview of what you'll be discussing specifically tomorrow?
Yeah, so the challenge that estuary management faces is like there's a press challenge like all the time, population growth, climate change, and then we're in, as we heard in the plenary, we're in an interesting time. The last year has been really challenging, so we'll talk about how our efforts can be resilient and our estuaries can be resilient in the future in the face of these kinds of things.
Right, and as you had mentioned in the plenary and everything with the challenges, there's still ways to find motivation to do this work, right? So what motivates and excites you to do this work?
Yeah, I really enjoy, and I think this is an emphasis of AAAS, of working at the intersection of where science can inform policy and management. And I get to do that in my job, and I get to work with other people who are motivated to do that. So I just love that. And then when you work on estuary management, you also get to be part of collective impact, where no one is in charge, no one can accomplish it, and so you get to work in collaboration, especially in interdisciplinary collaboration. That's very exciting.
Right, and right on theme with the conference, right? Yeah. And we have a lot of students who are attending this conference. What would you say to someone aspiring to join your line of work, your field of work? What advice would you give to those students?
Yeah, let me ask for the next slide. And this the slide doesn't answer the question, but
Important to show.
What I love is being able to focus on place. And so I have find that really motivates me. Find what motivates you. Find what scale it is. If working for a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. is the thing, or working at NIH is your thing, like follow your passion. And it took me a while to find mine, but mine's really at that scale of place and being attached to place and then making science come through in that work. So understand what you want to do and probably find a way to connect your hypotheses and your motivations to some real world work and then combine those two in your work.
Right, and you mentioned finding your way. How specifically did you find your way into this, if I may ask?
Yeah, I don't have a PhD. I have a master's from a professional school. Shout out to the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. I'm really, I chose well in that program. And then I went straight into a consulting kind of situation. And then I worked for the state of Wisconsin for 5 years. I learned to really appreciate what I said a minute ago about place-based work, working on Great Lakes. I'm from Washington State and had the opportunity to move back and work on Puget Sound issues. And so that was 30 years ago, and I've been there ever since.
I also went the master's route, so I can relate to that deeply. I think we can end with a funner question, or I'm hoping to be a funner question, is what are you reading right now?
Yeah, I love that this question came up and that we had time for it. I am reading some short stories by, oh my gosh, China Mieville, and 3 Moments of an Explosion. So I think he's written novels, but these short stories are just fabulous. And the one I finished on the trip down here was really science fiction. He describes his work as just weird, but it's also mostly like near science fiction, if not science fiction. So there's a soil scientist in the story I just finished.
And speaking of reading, is there anything that you would recommend to anyone else, like in your line of work, like any specific bodies of work to check out?
Boy, I just talked with an undergraduate at UCLA doing an informational interview, and I asked if she was learning about the open standards for the practice of conservation. And she hadn't. She's in conservation biology at UCLA, and I would recommend look up the open standards for the practice of conservation, because it's a really great science-based collaborative approach to the work that I do and a lot of people should do.
Wonderful. Actually, a final question. I know I had mentioned that before, but is there anything that you would want to leave with listeners here today about either your work, your session, or any kind of final thoughts?
Well, come to the session tomorrow, please. And then I just think, as we think about science at scale, let's remember one of those scales is bringing it to the places we care about.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being here with us, Scott. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.